now talking to Sister Agnes McKeon. Of course, we will be speaking to her again in the context of Angola. But Sister Agnes, how come that you found yourself in the United States of America? Where in Ireland did you come from, and how did you get to America?
Well, I was born in County Leitrim, Lisclonardee, County Leitrim. And I was the youngest, the second youngest of a family of 9. And my oldest brother, he had gone to America while I was only a baby, a youngster at 2 or 3 years of age, so that I never knew my brother. And I decided when I had finished my nursing training in England, at first I did mental deficiency nursing, a 3-year course.
Where was that?
In Lewisham, in Dartford,
Right.
in Kent. And I gave some time to the hospital. I think a year we had to give to the hospital when we finished. And then after that I applied to do general nursing. And I went to general nursing and did my 3-year course. It was troubling me about what I should do for the future. And I had in mind that I wanted to help people and help as a missionary. And I didn't know any congregation. And one evening, some of my pals, after I had finished my nursing course in general nursing, she came home one evening and she was full of excitement, she was full of joy. And she says, "Oh, I just had a wonderful evening. I've been up London," she said, "and it was a wonderful film that I've seen. It was this group of medical missionaries of Mary, and where they worked on the missions, and they had done such wonderful work." And she said, it even showed them, she says, saying, where the priest was saying Mass, and because of the heat of the country, she says, the candles were even burned down. Because the heat of the African sun was burning them down. So I had that in mind. That was the first I heard of medical missionaries of Mary. I wanted to enter, but I knew there was a problem there. If I hadn't seen my brother, that I wouldn't be at rest in any congregation, no matter where I'd entered, I wouldn't be at rest. And I thought, well, the best thing for me to do now is to go and see my brother.
Yes.
And when I've seen my brother, then I can make up my mind what I want to do and where I want to enter.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going off to America. So I saved up my money and I flew out to America.
Oh. What year was that?
That was in 1949.
Did you fly from London?
And I went to my brother in Long Beach, New York.
Did you take the plane in London?
Oh, no,
or did you come to Ireland?
I came home to Ireland.
So you went from Shannon?
And I went from Shannon, yes.
Okay.
And it was in the early days of Shannon flights to America.
They used to go out in the middle of the night.
I hadn't told my mother at home and father that I was entering.
Right.
And I came home and I told them what I was doing, and I had my mother's blessing. And off I set for America. So I arrived in America at New York airport, and I hadn't known my brother, so I had sent a picture of myself to my brother, and he had sent me a picture of himself. And I was waiting along, I saw this man standing up as if he were looking for somebody. And I thought, well, you know, he's a bit like Mammy, and maybe that's my brother. So I walked over to him, and I said, was he looking for somebody? And he says, yes, I'm looking for Agnes. So I says, well, I'm Agnes McKeon.
Wasn't that lovely?
So we had a great welcome. It was a great reunion altogether. And of course, then I had to meet his wife, and there was one child there at that time, a 2-year-old. And my sister-in-law was expecting a baby next month. So when I was thinking about things, things. I said I was going to take up nursing in New York. So when I heard she was expecting a baby next month and she was really in a difficulty to know what would become of the girl while her husband was out at work. He had to go to keep the pub going. So I decided that I'd stay at home. I wouldn't go to work, I wouldn't go to work until she came back from having her baby. So then when she had her baby, I went to work in St. Joseph's Hospital in Far Rockaway. It was quite a little bit away from Long Beach. And
you had a fair bit of initiative now. You went off to London from Leitrim and got yourself through one course, and then you got into another
course,
Then you got yourself to Long Beach.
I was determined.
You certainly were.
I was determined that I wanted to make good use of my life because I had that desire in my mind that I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
I love nursing, but I thought, well, there's something more into life than just nursing like this. And I want to give myself to work for people that where they really needed a lot of help and where they were neglected. So then I kept thinking back of what this nurse had told me in England about meeting the medical missionaries of Mary. And I said, well, I'll write to Drogheda. I had the address of Drogheda. I must have got it from that nurse in England.
And you kept it and brought it to America.
A Cork girl. And I think I'm straying away a little bit.
No, you're grand. No. You wrote to Drogheda.
You did a lot of straying.
I wrote to Drogheda. And Mother Mary got my letter on the eve of her setting out for America. Just on the evening. And she was so sorry she couldn't contact me to meet her. So she asked her secretary to write to me and to tell me that she was going out on the boat the next morning, setting off for New York, arriving in New York at such a date and at such a time.
We now know that was July 1950.
And if I'd meet her there at New York when she'd come in. So I duly went up to New York on that morning to meet Mother Mary. I had told them in the hospital in Far Rockaway I was going out for the day, and that I'd be back that night. Because I was on duty at 7 o'clock in the morning in Long Beach in St. Joseph's. So anyway, when I went to New York and I waited and waited, the boat came in. And passengers were coming off the boat, one after the other. And no sign of Mother Mary or no sign of any other sister or nobody in grey. And I said, what am I going to do? And it was getting on in the evening. And I waited and waited. And no sign of anybody to come. So then I saw this priest and I went over to him. And I said, did you see any nuns on the boat? He says, I did. I said, there was 2 nuns in grey. And he said, I think they were medical missionaries of Mary. And I said, well, I'm waiting for them. So shortly afterwards, I got a note out from Mother Mary to say she had arrived, but that they were not being let off the boat, neither her nor Sister Stella. And if I could be at the port to meet her at 10 o'clock next morning. So at 10 o'clock next morning, I was duly there at the boat.
Did you go back to the hospital that night?
No, I didn't, because I couldn't. I was a long way from the port in New York to St. Joseph's was a long way off, and I couldn't get. And I was on duty at 7 o'clock, so I thought I had to contact the hospital to let them know I'd be out all night, which was a big problem.
Yes.
And that I wouldn't be on duty at 7 o'clock in the morning. Because I was on 7 till 3, that was my hours of work. I remember my brother telling me if ever I was out at night and I had to stay someplace, that I was never to go to a poor place, that I was to go to the best place, the best hotel there was in the area and stay there for the night, but never to go to a poor area, to stay in a poor area at night, no matter how much it cost me. So anyway, I had the money and I decided, I made inquiries probably from that priest as to where I could stay. And anyway, it was the Waldorf Hotel. And I'm sure anybody that's in America has heard of the Waldorf Hotel. So that's where Agnes took herself for the night. So I had my supper there and went to bed and got up in the morning and took myself off to the airport, to the
boat.
Port, to the ship. So I arrived there, and quite a long time I was waiting there when Mother Mary and Sister Stella. So I met them there, and I took them to a hotel, but not to the Waldorf. Anyway, I was at the boat at this area at this time. So we had a lovely meal there. And after the meal, Mother Mary and myself had a chat together.
Yeah.
And she told me a little about the congregation and them having houses on the missions. And I remember her speaking about Sister Jude and telling me what a wonderful sister she was and all she had done in Drogheda, caring for lepers and all the sick. So I decided, well, that I'd think about it. So she said to me, now you think about it, she says, and come back this day fortnight to see me, to here, to St. Agnes's Hotel, St. Agnes's residence, that's right. Did you know that?
Run by sisters, was it, Teresa?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a Providence, I think.
The St. Agnes's residence. Anyway, I got there and met Mother Mary, and then, as I said, she asked me to come back in 2 weeks' time to enter in
Commonwealth
Boston,
Avenue.
in Boston.
Yeah.
And up I went again to Boston on my own.
First time in Boston.
First time, said goodbye to my brother and his wife, and their 2 children at that time.
New baby.
The baby in Rockaway Park, and went straight up to Boston. Mother Mary met me at the door when I arrived at 36 Commonwealth Avenue.
You found your way there, no trouble.
I found myself there. All I had to do was to get a taxi from the station.
You went on the train from New
At the
York
train
to Boston.
station, that's right. After a meal in Boston, Mother took me aside into one of the rooms, and that was on the 14th day of September. And tomorrow, she said, is the feast of Our Lady of the 15th day of September.
Yes, Our Lady of Dolors.
Of Dollars, yes. She says, you entered on the 15th. You entered on the eve of the 15th. She says, so you entered on the 15th of September. And with a little talk, and then Sister Stella showed me up to my room, and I can't remember very much after that. I suppose I was tired and exhausted.
Okay, can you remember who opened the door to you in Commonwealth Avenue?
Mother Mary.
Herself?
Yes, she was looking out the window. As I came to 36 Commonwealth Avenue, the taxi stopped and Mother Mary was looking out the window, and she came, and Sister Stella and Mother Mary, I think the both of them came and met me. And I was delighted with myself, because now I was where I wanted to be. I was joining a congregation, and I was hoping that I'd get out to these places that Mother Mary had told me about.
You were the very first to enter in the United States.
In the United States, yes. I even met Mother at the boat, and then followed her up to Boston.
Yeah.
And then we used to walk from Commonwealth Avenue across the Boston Common. And Mother Mary and I, we had many a good talk. She used to tell me all about the congregation, you know.